Thank you, gentlemen. Let's continue the discussion and see how other retailers have been working with these platforms, what their experiences are. And I'd like to call on stage Anil Menon, Head of IT at Trent Hypermarket, Deepak Sabharwal, Co-founder and CEO of Earthy Tales, Kiran Ghale, Founder and CEO Number Mall, Rakshit Daga, VP IT at Big Basket, Sunil Saraswat, COO ZapNow, Shailendra Singh, Head of E-commerce at HUL, and to lead the discussion as moderator, K. Radhakrishnan, co-founder, Tata Retail, StartQuick.com.
Good afternoon, everyone. And time before lunch and after lunch both are not too good for conferences, but we'll try our best. Okay, so I was looking through the agenda today of the conference, and I was trying to find a theme. It's almost becoming impossible to find what really this conference is about. It's almost like what IT is doing. We're not able to figure out what it is doing to us. So we're going to discuss today the internet, how IT and the internet together has changed some of the traditional businesses and giving a completely different view to the consumer. The book called Digital Economy, written by the two founders of Google, is really worth reading. Because when you read that book, you suddenly realize that the internet is not about shopping. The internet is about empowering. It not only reaches people, it allows people to have their view. It almost democratizes the political power. The internet should not be seen in the narrow way in which we sometimes see it in the businesses that we run, that it's about home delivering grocery. I think it's a very small piece of what the consumer is today seeing. We are going to look at this in this panel from a consumer's point of view. And I think the debate should also be, and the discussion should be, empowering the consumer to have another view of something that she has been doing for the last 100 years, but is not going to be the same in the next 100 months. So I want to start by asking Shailendra, who heads the e-commerce business for HUL, for Unilever. And I think he's in the best position to look at it because during his tenure in HUL in the last 12 years, he's looked at general trade, modern trade, and I think one of the best insights in the country on what e-commerce is doing. So Shail, I just want to ask you, what has changed? You've seen your brands, some of the best brands in this country. When you attach an internet to it, what is it doing? And I want to refer to the meeting that we had in your office, where you walked us through how there are different brands which are selling in the different channels. That I found to be extremely interesting. So,
thank you, Radha. So, I think the biggest change, and taking over from the point which you raised about saying internet is not just about connecting things. It is actually a massive transformation what it is bringing in. And it's bringing in a transformation right across the value chain. If you look at it from the demand generation perspective, the way the consumers were connecting with a brand, say 5 years back versus now, is fundamentally changing. The brands are able to reach to the consumers with a razor's edge. Earlier, they would do a TV ad or a print ad and actually hope that the consumer who's watching it is actually the real consumer of the brand, hope that she will remember it when she walks in the store, hope that when she is in the store, she will find the product, and then hope that she will eventually get picked up. Now, that journey is being short-charged by this entire e-commerce and the online kind of a space. The kind of inputs which she now has, it's an ecosystem. I mean, imagine a scenario where she's watching television in her home from the say, India's MasterChef. There is a Alexa app right next to it, which picks up what is she actually watching. It follows her on the digital ecosystem and in fact haunts her, something which we've all seen if you click on a product on Amazon, how it actually haunts you back and back. It starts to leave an impression and starts shaping your entire decision making. And that's what is beginning to happen, and that's the power of digital which is bringing in. With the help of bloggers, videos, all of that is shaping the new demand. The technology is coming in to actually tell us that sugar is bad. And that information is then changing the portfolio, because with consumer being aware, she's demanding those products and is starting to change that. So while that's about the consumer demand change, what's actually happening is fragmentation of demand. From earlier mass production, it's moving towards massive customization. Now in that scenario, the traditional retail models and the way you were reaching out, it starts to differ.
So Shal, is the internet dismantling some part of that traditional supply chain and the methods which we thought is going to stay, which is factory to C&F to the retailer, which is pretty laborious at one level. Is it dismantling some of that bit?
Oh, massively. I mean, earlier if you had to reach as a brand to the consumer, you had to ride upon being present in all the stores across relevant locations, which you are guessing on, and then eventually get there. Now to get there used to be a massive movement from our factory to our depot to the distributor to then finally the store. Now what's happening is there is a centralized location where the entire stock is kept. Those 10 CLDs, which is 10 cases of product, can actually service the entire country demand. Now what's that enabling then is, we are now able to take on innovations like never before, because the cost of innovating and failing is not too high. You can actually just produce 100 units of a product and see for yourself actually if it gets picked up, if there is consumer traction in it or not, and kill it at early stage. Earlier you wouldn't know because you are struggling to match the consumer and the shopper together.
So Shal, I want to come back to you in the next round and ask you, for a hardcore traditional brand which has been in India and almost setting the trends of how FMCG should behave, what it has actually done to you. So I'll actually come back to you on that. Kiran, I want to ask you about the model that you actually launched, which is to say that we've got 14 million Kirana shops in this country, and they are served by the retailers. I'm not sure that service is really that great. Are you trying to solve some of that problem? Just tell us how the internet has filled a void in the lives of the retailer. Just before you answer, I think we have to understand, and this is my personal view, that anything that you buy in a year, I would put in two buckets. One bucket is grocery, and everything else is in another bucket. And why is it that the internet players around the world have not figured out grocery online? I can tell you, Amazon hasn't, nor have large players. Why is it like that? And I believe nobody can walk into this country, no matter how big or strong or rich, and make grocery happen. You've got to be here and understand this business, and that is a separate ball game altogether. This is where people like Kiran may actually disrupt the market in connecting brands like what Shailender's company has to the Kirana, and there may be a gap in it. So Kiran, you want to speak into the mic?
Thank you, Radha. Hello. Yeah, thank you, Radha. Well, we are basically connect the brands to the Kirana shops. We assume, and we have seen the markets, from the past few years. The trends are definitely growing as a consumer level, connecting directly to the e-commerce. But if you look at the bottom of the pyramid, and majority of them still, shopping at the Kirana shops. Even every brand today is purely depending on the, more than 90% of their sales is, predicted from the Kirana shops, which is a general trade. So that's where we play a role, connecting these brands directly to the Kirana shops through our centralized distribution network, and also, everything on the technology, of course. Because of the internet, this is changing. The retailer is more confident now creating the demand instead of waiting for the distributors to come and pick the orders. That's like old way of taking the order system.
So Kiran, do you keep your own stock?
Yes, we do keep our own stock, and also some brands that they directly keep their own stock as well. So depends on the model.
And you do the distribution into the Kirana
Yes,
shops?
we do everything.
So you become a Kirana aggregator, right?
In a way, yes, you're right.
So
We are an e-distributor.
that
So-
idea is not new, but is it working for you?
Yes, of course. Today, more than 30 brands that working with us, and more than 5,000 retailers, in Hyderabad that we are doing almost a weekly one order.
What kind of brands work with you?
Including HL.
Oh,
Yep.
all right. That's great. So obviously it shows that even Unilever brands, there are areas in the city which has not penetrated, and therefore you can actually.
So the
help them
real
penetrate.
problem is the distributors, go to the shop level. They left out the many shops. They are always happy to serve the wholesalers.
Right.
That's where we come and add the value. Serving the C and D class outlets. It's not that you give it to the distributor and distributor dictate terms. As a brand, you never wanted that, right? As a retailer, I always wanted the power in my hand, my mobile. If the offtake is good for the particular brand, I would like to order it anytime.
So if you distribute a Unilever brand, who pays your margin?
Of course, Unilever.
No, not bad. I mean, this is democratizing the corporate FMCG, with a startup, and this is so extremely interesting. You want to give us some numbers? How many cities you are and what you're doing?
We are currently in 2 cities around Hyderabad
Okay.
and planning to go national this year.
And how many retail outlets do you cover?
We have about 5,000 retailers on our
Wow,
platform.
fantastic. And you supply to the retail outlets every day, every week?
C and D class is almost like 90% of our customers, 94% to be
All right.
precise.
Well, I saw a very interesting kiosk outside. You may want to look that up.
Yeah, we have a
they have
stall
a
out
POS
there.
system.
Yeah.
They have a POS system where you can order and the order gets
Yeah.
I mean, how much of work is happening? And this is almost amazing. Sunil? Sunil runs ZopNow, and he is the CEO of ZopNow. And ZopNow is one of the most successful omni-channel players, and he's been working with almost all the retailers, offline retailers in the country. And he has some fantastic numbers. I know your numbers, what's in the public domain. And the kind of people number of customers you're serving every day is actually phenomenal. So just tell us what kind of customers use your application and what has changed from the time that you started. How has the customer's life changed? Instead of going to a store, they're actually buying on ZopNow.
Hello. Yeah. So I think we are a 5-year-old company now, and the initial days were tough. Customer acquisition always was a tough ask. It continues to be, and however good you are, what we are seeing is that customer attrition is a fact of life, right? But over the last 5 years, what we have seen is that if you look at people who order online and people who have app, that split is now almost 50-50. Right, which is great, right? So we started with 100-0.
Can you just hold the mic a little closer?
Yeah, so it's now 50-50. I mean, if you look at it very basically, what do we deliver to the customer? We deliver predictable inventory, or try to deliver predictable inventory at a predictable time. I think that is really what we are trying to do. That when you go to our app or when you go to the net and you log on to ZopNow, if you are ordering for 100 items, do you get 100 or do you get 95, right? That's what in our terminology is called fill rate. And I think that is where we have done a lot of good work. We work very closely with Hypercity and more and ensure that their fill rates also go up. And there's a certain process, that is involved. So typically if you as a offline store have a 90% or 95% fill rate, we bet that we'll take it up to around 97, 98. Right?
Very good. So can you substantiate that with some numbers that you're doing in Bangalore? I mean, how many customers do you serve? And
so in Bangalore, we do more than 2,500 customers every day.
very good.
Right?
That's a great number.
Yeah, and that is in spite of taking a very conscious call that we'll go a bit slow on marketing. Because see, you can always ramp up those numbers by spending
Yes.
big dollars, right? But I think the key thing here is how do you retain customers and how do you move customer to a level where he's only looking at the convenience and not at the discounting. I think one of the negatives that has happened, for want of a better word, is that some of the e-commerce has made customers very, very discount oriented. And that I think has got to change over a period of time if this business has to do well.
Yeah, the problem is discount. Somebody asked me, what's the role of, when a man is rich, why does he need a discount? You know, the poor people need it and the rich people love it. That's what a discount is. And people ask me, I also do an Omnichannel with Tata on top of the Star Bazaar stores. They ask me, what's so special about Omnichannel or something like what Sunil is doing? So the only answer I have is that at one time we used to stand in the railway station to book our tickets. It used to take some 4 hours of, you got to go through a tout. You know, just booking a train ticket sitting at home, how much more service do you need? Grocery is a grossly underserved category. It comes to you in poor quality, it comes to you the wrong time, you don't get it when you want it, it's a lot of effort. If you just home deliver on time and in full, what we call OTIF, on time in full, I think you've reached almost the current pinnacle of what grocery wants. That's really where it is. Anil, I want to ask you a question. And Anil is really the odd man out in this crowd because though Anil and me, you put us together, we will be in the same crowd. But Anil looks after the IT in Star Bazaar in Trent, and he heads the IT. So Anil, tell us, what's your worldview about what you're seeing around you in terms of online? How is it that you're going to challenge the offline stores in terms of technology to help it? I won't use the word survive because I don't think there is any threat from online as yet. But there are several internal threats to the model of offline itself, which is good enough for you to solve. So what's your view about what offline is going to do?
I'll take your word which you just spoke about, the jargon called as OTIF. That's our challenge now. See, if you're talking about omnichannel, obviously you're getting it from somewhere, and that somewhere is the offline model. We used to work in a particular framework because we didn't have anyone for an OTIF, and it works. And as Sushil correctly said, that we have improved offline availability. That means we had gaps out there. Now, what we are trying to do at Star and as an offline model is that we are trying to improve that gap. OTIF is our motive also. If you succeed, we succeed. Yeah, it's that manner. It's a chain. Yeah, and also we go back to the manufacturer also. Say for HUL, we provide real-time sharp information. And where do we get it? You are one of the partners for us. We know what's selling off the shelf. Sure. How soon? How much time would it take for us to rebuild it?
So here's a question for you, Anil. Almost 70% of the world works on SAP. And we know SAP is like a giant, is like an aircraft carrier. To move it, to turn it around quickly is difficult. And all the people around you are actually doing it by the hour. They want to make something new. It actually happens in an hour. What is the flexibility that you're building where you are from? Because it's all about flexibility, right? And about sharing and connecting. So what is it you're doing to become more flexible in the way you work? Or is it required, or are we just, hyperventilating?
Let me answer. There are two questions out there. Let me take one by one. SAP as an ERP, as a source system, makes sense. As an IT, what we do is try to bring an ecosystem around it, which talks to this particular giant and also has a TAT which is as simple as few hours, right? Because if you're working on a delivery model which talks about an hour, we have to talk about in milliseconds so that you can deliver in hours, right?
Sure.
So that's more what we're looking at, is more building an ecosystem around this. So when I say ecosystem, it should be not complex. It should be more simpler. I can build an ecosystem which is as complex as taking time and hours together to just figure out where the problem statement is. So the more the hand you shake, there's more disruption happening out there.
That's right. In fact, I remember in the 80s, the buzzword was have one system, don't have legacy systems, don't have bespoke systems. Today, the whole company is full of bespoke systems. So you have a highway called SAP, and you build a whole beehive around that whole SAP to actually take information and give to SAP and leave SAP where it is and do cheap solutions and actually look at the consumer actually enjoying it, right?
Yeah. Now I'll tell you a challenge out here. You go and ask half of the tech companies, okay, what are you doing on the customer service space or customer experience space? They'll show you an app. They'll show you, look, how good it is, how smooth it is. But there is a lot of opportunity and gap on the back end of it. Is anyone really looking into the back end of it?
Sure.
Who's helping me build the ecosystem?
Right.
There are very few players who's building the ecosystem for me.
Absolutely. So
Yeah, that's
I think that's quite right. It looks as if anybody who can do PHP programming believes that he has an internet opportunity, which I don't think is entirely right. Deepak and Rashid, I'm going to come to the big daddy of grocery online retail last. So Deepak, I have a question for you. Yeah. You're doing one of the most interesting things, and personally for me, emotionally and professionally very close to my heart. I've worked with farmers a lot. You are actually a farmer first and then an e-commerce player next. Just tell us what you're doing and tell us how, if there's any constituent in this country today who requires empowerment, I think it's the Indian farmer. 75% of this country lives there, and we eat tomatoes at a price which is completely subsidized by that farmer. All right, so let's be thankful for every morsel of food that we eat, that 75% of this country works for the other 25%. And therefore, I think you have a role to play. And what is it that you're seeing?
Yeah, thanks, Radha. I think your starting comments was that the internet is not about shopping online only. It's about empowering. And, I'm quite happy to say that, it has empowered me at least, who started with a farming background and, now, moved on to agripreneur, if I may. I think what it has done, or it will continue to do, is it will take farmers to the market. It will take farmers to consumer directly. And that's a very interesting transformation. I've been part of that journey for last 3 years now. What was the problem statement at a farmer end or in rural India is that you don't know who's your market, when is the right time to sell in the market, what to grow, what does your customer need. At a farmer level, you're quite oblivious, right? And what this technology has done is literally the farmer is now at the design table, if I may, in terms of what should be grown at what time of the year. And more importantly, they've started to understand the difference between a raw produce and a value-added item, because they know that customer will pay more, maybe 10 times more for an amla juice or a candy than for a raw amla.
So I'm going to ask you the mother of all questions. How do you match demand to supply and supply to demand?
Yeah, so see, the thing is, as I said, you're now a lot more closer to the customer, the end customer. You kind of, completely, if not completely, then majorly eliminated the middlemen or the long supply chain. And you're actually taken, as some of our customers tell us, that you brought farming or farms through your blogs, through your stories into our homes. And they now tell us, what's the demand cycle going to be at a home level, at a family level. And that kind of is fed back to our collective or cooperative of farmers. And that's what they grow, right? So it's actually, the demand is actually coming in directly from the customer, right? We don't have to wait for it.
Just give us some numbers. How many farmers are you doing? How many consumers are you serving?
So we work in 11 states today.
11 states?
11 states, representing close to about 200 odd farmers and few farming groups. We've managed to form a farmer cooperative. That's a sense of achievement for the farmers, because for the first time they understand they have a marketplace of their own, a platform of their own, wherein they can brand, have their own brand, right? And we work only in organic grocery space. So, collectively these 200 odd farmers would have avoided about 17,000 kgs of chemicals annually. And I think that's a big number, and that's what is resonating with the customers directly, because they feel part of this whole transformation.
This is amazing. I mean, we just wish you all the power and multiply what you're doing by 1,000. And tens and 10,000 that can solve so many social problems, I think, going forward. Rakshit, I have a question for you. You're the pure play e-commerce. You're not an omni-channel. You're pure play e-commerce grocery. Now, Hari has been a good friend, and I know what he has done in the last so many years, hard work. But what's the next transformation? I mean, is a transformation within or is it without?
It's a transformation within, right? I think the next level of focus for Big Basket is just going deeper. And like Hari likes to say, we are just scratching the surface of what is out there, even in the cities that we are present in. So we do around 60,000 orders a day across the country.
Wow, that's fabulous.
But that's still, I believe, a very, very small percentage of what could move online.
Sure.
Right? And in general, I mean, just a couple of thoughts on the idea of real estate in the online world, right? Which is all of you who are from the offline world and have managed omnichannel, real estate in a retail shop is a real problem. But I think it's a larger problem in the online world because the amount of real estate available to a customer is so little, and it's that attention span that you need to capture when the customer first downloads your app or first comes to your website. What is it that you show him that you get him to convert, right? And if you're able to retain a customer, how do you personalize that experience? So that's clearly one area of focus for us. In terms of using data to solve all kinds of back-end problems, right? The routing is a challenge. Picking, how do you manage picking efficiencies when you maintain warehouses the size that Big Basket maintains? I'll give you another statistic, right? We have pickers that walk up to 10 kilometers a day just picking orders. So that's an area that's so ripe for technological innovation. So what's been fascinating for me is the part where there's so many problems to solve where you can actually bring in technology, and each area by itself can be disrupted by technological innovation, whether in-house or by different startups working in these areas.
So before I go to Shailendra and come back to each one of you for a quick comment, and we close in the next 5-6 minutes, tell us, you're there in 25 cities. How have, I can understand the top 6-7 cities. The 6-7 cities alone, the size of grocery in the top 8 cities is $80 billion. And all the market that all the other internet players are playing, Amazon, Flipkart, Snapdeal, whoever it is, they are trying to find a piece of the pie of $80 billion. Just in the 8 cities, grocery alone is $80 billion. That's the size. And how many players? Peanuts. Just to give you some numbers, Bombay, all modern trade put together will sell fruit and vegetable about 150 tons a day. Just take a guess of what the size of the Bombay market every day is fruit and vegetable. Conservatively, it's 6,000 metric tons. 6,000. That's the unorganized piece of the most difficult category, and that's the problem to solve. Shailendra, I want to come back to you again. We spoke about transformation. If you take a brand, if you take, Clinique and you take Tresemme, these are two shampoos at different ends of the spectrum. What has e-commerce done for these brands, and how is it looking different for you?
Sure. So I think the way e-commerce has come in is, it is beginning to get a very niche and a different kind of a shopper and a different kind of a behavior of the same shopper actually emerge with the whole e-commerce piece coming in. Now, in my traditional kind of a distribution system, Tresemme would have been a number 5 or number 6 brand, yeah, and Clinique Plus would have been the king. However, the moment I move to online, the influence which I'm able to drive, the kind of prioritization I'm able to drive for Tresemme, it suddenly becomes a market leader there. And hence, it's a massive opportunity which it unlocks for all brands, and different channels have had and asked this question of the brands of what role will you play for me. And the moment that brand starts answering it right in the channel, there's a massive unlock which happens. Now, TRESemmé knows how to win on search online. TRESemmé knows how to really get the shoppers to use it properly instead of just being a simple shampoo. I think that's the opportunity which it presents to not just HUL but to any brand who's willing to answer that question. And that's what e-commerce is doing more and more to the brands.
Fantastic. I'm going to do a rapid fire with each one of you. And I'm going to ask you, if God were to descend in front of you and give you 2 wishes, what are the 2 problems that you want him to solve? Technologically, I mean. So, don't tell me the internet speed, because I'm not sure even God can solve that at this point of time. But, so let me start with you, Sunil. If there were 2 things that you want God to solve for you, which will change your business, what would they be?
I think that's a tough one. Hello?
And be 100% honest here.
So we were warned that Radha asks very tough questions, and here is one example. So I haven't thought of this, but I think for us the biggest challenge really, like I said, is stickiness, right? Customers come and go, and one of the reasons is that they believe that they'll get better discounts somewhere else, right? So I think I would like God to create one problem for entrepreneurs, and that is that there is no unlimited tap of money, right? I think that is important. That should happen in India.
So Sunil is saying you'll tell God, just ask all these goddamn retailers to take off all the stupid discounts that they're running. Absolutely. So everybody is level playing field. I think life will be a little better.
Absolutely. And I think the other one.
What about the traffic in Bangalore? You want to tell God about the traffic in Bangalore? You think he can solve that problem?
I think not even God can solve that.
The average speed that I experience in Andheri West during the peak time is about 4.5 kilometers per hour. So one day I was going in an Uber, I could see my flat, and he told me it'll take 15 minutes to reach, so I walk home. Okay, so
no, the joke with me is that every time a colleague calls, I'm at Silkboard, and every time my wife calls, I'm also at Silkboard. So that's the way traffic is.
So Anil,
really.
2 problems that God can solve for you.
Yeah, I do not know if God can solve it, but availability, one big thing at the store, because my online players don't creep on me. Okay, I have my customers saying good to that. So one is availability. Okay, the second one is someone please work on this back end part of
Sure.
the customer experience part. So it makes our life simpler.
I agree with you. Yes, Kiran.
Well, I look at every retailer, fulfilling his store replenishment, 100% through us. That's one of the problems that we wanted to solve.
Sure.
And
You've given a big one to God, so he has to do a lot of work now.
That's it.
Yes, Deepak.
Yeah, I think I have a little different take on it, and for obvious reasons. I think I would want, like every other producer or manufacturer, farmers to have the right to decide on their own price. And I think technology is playing an important role. And I'll be quite satisfied if we are able to create kind of an Amul example in F&V category, like they did in the dairy.
Sure, absolutely. I agree with you. Yes, Rashid.
So I think whoever solves the F&V supply chain farm to customer problem is going to be the winner in the online grocery space.
Great point, yeah.
Right, because FMCG, the numbers that you play with are so little, and F&V is the holy grail of online grocery. So whoever solves that, so hopefully God can give us the power to solve that. That's one. And the other problem from a pure technology and data perspective that I really would like to solve is, once a customer is using your app or is on the browser, how do you give him or her an experience where 80% of what he is going to order or is looking for is already available to him based on the data that you have gathered? So all very interesting problems right at the cutting edge of technology.
Sure.
I would combine the 2 wishes into one and say, please solve and fasten the technology curve for me. Because if today the real estate on mobile or anything is limited, it can actually be unlimited if I have the power of targeting every single consumer and really make it happen. Yes, it's happening with some of the retailers, but only if that curve can be a little faster, the flywheel on which the entire ecosystem hinges on can really pick up, and the challenges of all my dear friends on the panel can really be taken off.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Shailendra, because if the highway is not clear, no matter what car you have, you can't drive, right? Whatever intentions you have, you're not going to reach there. So we come to the end of the session. Just leave you with one comment. If online can solve one category's problem entirely, which nobody can do, even the consumer cannot do, it is the problem of ice cream. Even if you go shopping, you cannot bring rock hard ice cream to your doorstep. Today, we deliver rock hard ice cream to a consumer's doorstep. Internally in my company, I say, the day you can deliver rock hard ice cream to a customer's doorstep, we'll give you 9 out of 10 for your supply chain. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Do we have any time for questions, sir? We don't. Thank you very much for a very nice session.